What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and I just got done watching the Sony press conference of E3 2017. Leading up to this, everybody kept saying one thing: man, Sony better knock it out of the park. A lot of other people haven't been bringing their A game, but when it comes to Sony, they're usually pretty good about bringing out the biggest and best titles. And man, did they. Every single trailer did the most important thing, which is it taught me about the game. I learned where Kratos is at and why he's fighting. I learned more about Detroit Become Human, and I learned a ton about Spiderman. But let's back up and go all the way back to the beginning. Everything opened up with an extended look at Days Gone. Now I actually understand what this game is. When we first saw it, it was just this gruff biker dude driving around and shooting at things that they insisted weren't zombies, even though they looked like zombies. These creatures are called freakers, and, well, I'm just going to call them zombies for the sake of easiness. Okay, so in this world, it looks like the zombies have already completely taken over. Almost nobody is left. These zombies don't seem to actually see very well. They're all about sound. So everybody is having to be incredibly quiet. At one point, towards the beginning, he's driving down the highway looking all gruff and cool, and he gets hit by a trap. Somebody set up a giant cord across the street that clotheslines him. While he's on the ground, even though he has a gun, he knows he can't use it. So instead, he has to fight both these guys off with his bare hands. One he even strangles with a rope. And while he's doing it, we see that it's this really young kid. It really began to hit me that this game is so brutal. It's going to be all about the savageness of humanity pushed to the brink. After that, we see him going up to other camps trying to rescue his friends. And that's when we see that it looks like the freakers are going to be used as a weapon a lot. We see him use like a hand-built explosive to knock out a barrier, which draws in a humongous horde of hundreds of these motherfuckers. And they just wash over them like a tide. It kills all of his enemies in minutes. This finally actually makes sense to me. Honestly, when I first saw Days Gone, I was like, not for me. Now I am 100% on board. Mostly because the teaser ends with a zombie bear. It's covered in barbed wire and looks pissed as hell. Look at the size of that. Count me in. Following this was Monster Hunter World. We'd heard rumors that this existed, but here it is, and holy heck. Okay, so up to this point, most of the Monster Hunter games have only been on Nintendo consoles, or all the main entries have. Monster Hunter World is rumored to be a spin-off that's going to be a lot more action-focused, and judging by what we saw, it looks like that is totally true. We see him using a grapple hook to literally zip around this giant creature, pick up leaves and put it on his armor so it can be camouflaged and sneak closer to it. We see him picking up minerals off the ground to craft more special spells or something. It's hard to tell what's exactly going on, but I'm very interested to see more. I like that it looks so much more straightforward. There's almost no HUD. There's like a tiny little health bar and a tiny little like item bar, but for the most part, it looks like they want you to feel like you're deep into the world, and it totally worked. Even just seeing this little 2-minute trailer, I knew that I'd have to put 100 hours into this. Collecting monster parts, crafting new gear, getting stronger to take on bigger bosses is what this series is about, and now it looks like it's going to be better than ever on the PlayStation 4. Speaking of better than ever, we also saw teasers for a Shadow of the Colossus and Ico remaster. Yes, that's right, one of the most popular PS2 games of all time is coming back, and whoa! Now, obviously, this is probably a very early pre-alpha build, but even with these couple frames of gameplay we're seeing, it looks gorgeous. Like, it looks like realistically they're doing the whole thing over from the ground up and just keeping like the bosses the same. It's going to be like a Crash Bandicoot style remaster, and that is what that game deserves. Both of those are just such stellar examples of non-verbal storytelling, just weaving this amazing tale through motion, and I'm so on board. Something that I'm a little bit less on board for, though, is the Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. We saw a lot more of the gameplay, and it looks good, but I'm really let down. It doesn't look like there's going to be any X-Men in it. It looks like it's going to be all Marvel Universe characters are coming to this, so Black Panther, yes. Thanos, yes. Gamora, hell yeah. But if you're hoping for, like, Wolverine to bust out his claws and Berserker Barrage, it looks like, you know, we're going to be keep dreaming, because that's not going to be... If it's included, it might be DLC. I really hope they don't do that. Literally, the X-Men have been a staple of this franchise from the very, very beginning. So if they get excluded for this one, I'm going to be genuinely heartbroken. Then there was Call of Duty World War II. It looked like this trailer was all about showing us how savage this is going to be. We see people storming into bunkers that are just full of murder nests, people getting machine gunned down. We see an American soldier marching into this tiny little narrow tunnel and just flame-throwing Nazis, just melting them like butter on a hot day. It looks like it is going to be so brutal, but this is what Call of Duty needs. I've been so tired of all the freaking games where you instantly regenerate your health and you have 5 million hand grenades. I want a game that makes me afraid to run out of ammo. I want a game that actually makes it where when I beat a level, I feel like I beat something, like I accomplished something, and Call of Duty looks to be doing that. I'm not going to say their dumb catchphrase. They keep saying, boots on the ground. This is going to be boots on the ground combat. I'm not going to say that, even though I just said that. Ah well, either way, I'm definitely going to play it. I'm not the biggest Call of Duty fan, but I was really into it back in the day, and hopefully this is going to be that hardcore bringing it back to the roots that we need. Following this, we got a bunch of teasers for upcoming PSVR games, which, you know me, I'm not really a VR guy at all, and we got Skyrim VR, a horror game in VR, and also some weird side-scroller, which seems so odd for me to put on a $400 hat, basically, just to watch characters jump around. I'm not really quite sure what the point of that is. I think that they only did this to really kind of show that Sony is still supporting the PSVR, despite the fact that it's not selling quite as much as they hoped. Now let's move on to what really is the most important, God of War. We saw a load of story details. It seems like his son is not imbued with the gifts he has. His son is just a weak human, and because of it, his father sees him as weak, as cursed. And that's such an interesting aspect, and it looks like a big part of the game is going to be dealing with this power dynamic. His father is literally the god of war, and now he's in a strange land with foreign beasts and mythological creatures that have never been heard of before, and he's probably, realistically, going to be killing them one by one, and his son isn't going to be of any help. But I guess it's still important that they go on this journey together. We saw also that it looks like the combat is going to be very magic focused. Now what I mean by this is, we saw them actually turning on certain elemental types, like turning on a blue blade to cause frost damage to his attacks, or turning on lightning to make it where when he uppercutted a foe, they actually got held in the air by lightning for a couple extra seconds. So I guess if you're dealing with something that really, really hurts, you could actually stun lock it in the sky. I think this is really interesting, and really overall, the combat is surprisingly on cue with the older God of War games. It's still really fast, it's still really gory, and it's still really, really savage, but that's what's good about it. I was kind of afraid in my own way that they were going to be slowing it down and trying to turn it into a little bit more Last of Us style, where it's very, very focused on picking your targets and who you attack. And nope, definitely Kratos is still the complete badass he's always been. He's just got a super cool beard now. My favorite part of what they showed was them going out into this lake and this humongous, I mean, like, this dragon the size of Texas waking up, and it like puts on this big smile. It's like, oh, like speaking ancient Norse, and his son's translating for him. And it's like, he says he wants to help us. And it's like, okay, so clearly they're getting themselves tangled up with a whole new group of Norse gods, and I'm totally on board. Let's have another civil war among these giant deities. Count me in. In the style of unique storytelling, nobody tops David Cage. Each of his projects just seems like it's a competition to be as weird as possible, and Detroit Become Human looks to be upping the ante in every way I wanted. So, it looks like it's a city that's completely run by machines. Humans live there, humans work there, but when it comes to all the manual labor, even stuff like detective work, police work, the people shoveling the sidewalks, or anything like that, it's all done by androids, every single bit of it. But these aren't just some like mindless robots. They're basically just humans that are built by other humans. They think, they have dreams, they have hopes, they have aspirations, and they also have anger, they have grudges, and so because of it, it looks like one of the characters we're going to be playing as, because if you remember, Detroit Become Human is basically going to be 13 side stories of different characters. Well, it looks like one of them is going to be a guy who is starting a robot uprising. He's going into the stores at night that just have all these real humans, basically, they're just robot humans, up like mannequins, and he's awakening them. He has some sort of power where when he touches somebody on the shoulder, it maybe installs a computer virus that makes them self-aware. It lets them fight back. We see these people awakening, but that's only one of many branching options. It looks like the game is going to be very much a flowing river of storytelling. Each time there's a major choice, you can either hide and run from the cops, or try and go down the gutter, or try and blend into a crowd. But depending on what you do, it's going to affect the overall outcome of everybody's story. And it looks like things are actually going to get pretty bloody. The end of the trailer showed him getting handed a gun after they've managed to save a bunch of robots, and they're all standing around in a circle, and there's one last cop down on his knees, and they hand him a gun, and it says like, do you want to go the peaceful route and try and do a peaceful revolution? Show people that you're a human by proving your humanity. Or do you want to shoot them in the head? Do you want to make there be paid? Do you want them to pay for blood in blood? Man, it looks incredibly moving, and I'm gonna have to be in. I've played all the previous David Cage games, so I might as well play this one too. To close out the conference with a little bit of trash talk, Sony looked right into the camera and said, hey, how about we end this show with some real exclusives? Basically making fun of the fact that Microsoft keeps saying, this is an Xbox exclusive launch, because everything that's on Xbox is eventually coming to PlayStation 4. But Spiderman is always going to find his home with Sony. This gave us so many more details about how the gameplay is going to work. It looks like Spider-Man is able to sneak around and be stealthy when he needs to. There's going to be cool quick-time events, but what really caught me off guard is it looks like the combat is going to have a lot of slow-mo mechanics. It looks like because of the spider sense, every time somebody's pulling out a gun or throwing a punch, everything goes slow. So you have an opportunity of which direction you want to dodge, which person you want to grab, and which person you want to try and web sling. In that way, it looked and it looks like it feels a lot like Batman Arkham Asylum. The rhythm is your weapon. Your movement is what's key. And also, we finally got a really good look at who the villain's going to be. It seems like there's a gang war going on, and the main gang that's coming out on top is somebody called the Demons. They have some sort of gravity technology. We see this big brute guy who he's basically completely immune to any sort of web slinging because he can use his gravity powers to rip it apart. And the only way he could be hurt is when Spider-Man would sling bricks at his face or do something that would actually stun him first. But other than that, we also saw this really cool sequence where he's holding onto a helicopter and trying to grab stuff. He's also getting a crane. There's this crane falling over and he's web slinging it to the side of a building so it doesn't fall on people. It looks like we're getting to play the best moments of a Spider-Man movie. And it's all so fluid. Jumping around, swinging, grabbing enemies. Everything you have to do is one seamless piece of Spider-Man's story. I am extremely excited for this, and I have to say that Sony absolutely killed it. This has been the best show of E3 so far by a humongous measure. I almost want to lower the rating of every other conference because Sony, you have just redefined the game entirely. I am giving you guys an A. Keep up the great work, keep up all the exclusives, and keep on killing it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Hey, if you like this video, check out all my other E3 coverage. Each of these buttons will take you to a different video I made covering one of the conferences. Man, this has been a doozy of a weekend.